Good morning, grade 11s. Welcome to your guidance session for your upcoming literature exam, where I'll give you an overview of what to expect and perhaps one or two suggestions along the way. There's quite a bit to get through in terms of my suggestions and my recommendations, so let's get started straight away. Remember that this is being recorded and you'll be able to access it at any time beforehand so that you can go through it at your own pace. So what can you expect in this exam? Well, this is where we cover all of your literature that you've done so far this year, all your poems studied so far, and everything that you've read in your novel and your drama thus far. So the Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry and your Merchant of Venice. You'll have 2.5 hours in which to complete this exam, and it is made up of 80 marks. So grade 11s, you have more than enough time in which to complete everything there. Right. A few things that you can do beforehand is make sure that you're comfortable with the type of question words that we expect from you. Run your eye over this table. I've gone over them many times before in other sessions, but I thought if it's here for you, you can just reacquaint yourself with what's expected of you when you're given a question with this type of critical thinking question in it. Probably most important for you are things like to comment on the effectiveness of, the compare and contrasting, and to justify and to substantiate. And I'm going to point out some of those examples in an example paper just now. I like you to know what your paper looks like, so please take a moment beforehand, the day or two before, and go over the instruction sheet here, so that it's not overwhelming when you open it up on the day of the exam. A few things to keep in mind. Remember, you have some choices in this exam, so make sure you make the correct choices. Probably think about that the day before already. Are you going to attempt the poetry essay question? Are you going to try and do the novels essay and then do the contextual for your drama, or the other way around? Please keep your numbering in the same order as the question paper. So even if there's an error, that you keep the same numbering, because then it correlates to my memo. And use as dark a pen as possible, please, grade 11, so that when you upload it for us as a PDF, it comes out as dark as possible. All right, so what can you expect in each section? So like I said, in the poetry prescribed section, so the scene poetry, you must answer 2 of the questions. So if you do the essay question, you must do 1 other contextual, or you can do 2 contextuals. And then you must do the compulsory question 5, which is the unseen poem. So you will end up with 3 questions answered in this section. So what are some of the things that you can keep in mind here? I would suggest that you take all of your prescribed poetry, set it out in front of you, and go and find these terms in each of those poems. So go and find what their themes are. Have a look at their structure and form. Think about the diction that the poets have used. Is there repeated wording? Is it significant? Does it help link with rhyme and rhythm? Does it create a pace as you read through it? You can pick up on the tone of the poets. It's generally the attitude of the poet that you can pick up in the poem. And then most importantly, obviously, being poetry, is that you look for the figurative writing. Are there any figures of speech being used? Are there other literary devices being used? So like repetition. Has the poet made use of enjambments? Has the poet made use of repetitive chorus lines? Things like that. Right, if you choose to do the poetry essay, I thought I'd give you a quick little discussion around that. All right, obviously you can practice these types of essays by going back on past papers. So this is where we're expecting you to have your critical thinking skills, but you're going to link it to the poem and the topic that we've given you. So make sure you have an introductory paragraph that contains your thesis statement, your main statement. You can often take a topic question and you can reword it so that it is a statement sentence. In this essay, imagery and form must always be discussed so that you can get as close as possible to that distinction mark. So imagery, what figures of speech have been used in the poem? In terms of form, what is the structure? Are there stanzas? How many lines are in a stanza? What type of stanzas are they? Are there a certain number of lines throughout? So is it a sonnet? Is it free verse? Things like that need to be discussed. So to receive your distinction mark, you must discuss tone, diction, and imagery, and link those back to the topic that we've given you about the poem. Remember your SEE. Make your statements, elaborate on it, and find your evidence from the poem to support what you said. Okay, so that's to keep in mind for your essay. For your unseen poem in question 5, you can have a look at a couple of ideas here beforehand. Remember, you can't predict what the poem will be, but you can predict certain things that will always come up in this type of question. So look at the title of the poem. Is it significant? Is it perhaps the theme of the poem? Is it making us think about something? Read the poem twice at least. Take a look then. So you're going to look at the title and you're going to look at the whole poem. Then you're going to break it up into the different stanzas. Does the poem flow from one stanza to the next? Almost like a story would. How many lines are there in each stanza? What type of stanza is it then? Is it 3 lines, so it's a tercet? Is it a quatrain? Are they rhyming couplets, for example? Then you can look at the type of words or phrases that the poet has used, and are those linked to the message that he's trying to bring across to you? You can often then pick up on its tone. So is there certain imagery that made us feel a certain way? Could we picture what the poet was saying? Is there a deeper underlying meaning, so your connotation to something? And then think about what the purpose could be that the poet had for writing this poem. And then a few things that you can control beforehand is go over the different types of figures of speech that you know of. Think of sound devices like onomatopoeia or alliteration or onomatopoeia. Think about the types of poems that you can get, sonnets or free verses. And importantly, go back on those question words that I showed you a little earlier. Right, if you choose to do the poetry essay, there's a rubric that we use to mark it. So I'd like you to know your rubric beforehand. Remember, grade 11s, if you choose to write an essay and you write me a creative essay, you can't get any marks. Your essay must be a discussion of the poem we've given you. All right, so have a look at your top criteria there. See what it will take for you to be able to get your distinction mark in an essay question like this. Right, your next section is going to link you to your literature. So it starts off with your reference to your novel, all right, in your study guide. That's from page 83 onwards. And remember that all the topics and discussion points in your literature guide are geared towards making you practice critical thinking. So if you choose to do the essay here, remember you must then do the contextual for your drama. Right, so a few things that I thought you could think about in terms of your novel from my perspective. On top of everything that your teachers have taught you or that your facilitators at home have taught you, I would say that you can go back specifically to page 70 of your study guide, look at what characters you've met, what type of journey are they on. Does the author take you on a journey? So does it change the way you think about things? So consider a few things. Why does Harold begin his walk so suddenly and without any preparation? Why does the girl at the garage inspire him to just keep walking? How does the author link mental illness and the idea of being a good, mannerly Englishman who doesn't show his emotions? How does the lack of open dialogue open the discussion around mental health issues? Think of each character, think of their son, and even Maureen's behavior. Does this not make you criticize how we try to be human based on what's expected of us in society? And if we do show emotion, are we judged differently? All right, so just a few thoughts, my own thoughts around the novel. I love the novel for you to think about. All right, themes that you can also look at in terms of your drama, all right, your Merchant of Venice. Remember the personal potential conflict situation between Bassanio, Antonio, and Portia. Think of certain themes that have been coming up all along. So boredom, the theme of mercy, being merciless versus being merciful, love, appearance versus reality is always a theme in a Shakespeare. So what appears to be, but what are they actually in reality? Certain choices that characters have to make. Does it show that they are greedy? Are they willing to help out other people? Things like that. All right, so keep those things in mind. Just a further thought about Shylock. I always like to just throw a spanner in the works. Can we actually consider Shylock to be a tragic villain? Do you see the oxymoron there? To be tragic, but to be a villain at the same time. Is he perhaps just a misunderstood character? Think about how Jewish people were considered back in the time, in Christian Europe at that time. Could we say that he actually loves his daughter very much? Does that love for his daughter justify his evil intentions along the way? So just a few thoughts that I thought I'd leave there for you. If you choose to do the literary essay, remember, you will have to for either section, remember a few basic things. In your introduction, remember, take our topic that we've given you and restate it as your statements. This paragraph can be even short, grade 11, so don't stress if it's a one-line or a one-sentence paragraph. In the body of your essay, remember to focus on your SEE. Each paragraph has its own new point. Right, you're going to make your statement, you're going to elaborate on it, and you're going to find evidence from the text, either from the extract we've given you, from the topic we've given you, or you recall something from the play or from the novel, and you're going to use that as your evidence. Right. If you're going to quote, remember to quote correctly and use your inverted commas. But if you're uncertain about the actual wording, rather rephrase it as a paraphrasing. Your conclusion, keep it brief. All right, don't go and introduce a new topic into your concluding paragraph. All right, and you can probably take the topic question we gave you and rephrase it as a concluding statement. And then do a quick check of your style. Have you used the present tense in everything? Have you mentioned the title of the novel or the play? Have you written it correctly? Have you mentioned characters' names and spelt them correctly? If you've connected paragraphs using linking words, and are the quotes that you've used relevant? Have you correctly quoted them? All right, so just a few little checkpoints that you can keep in mind at the end of your exam. Some checkpoints: have you stayed focused on the topic? Have you got evidence from the text or recalled evidence from what you've read? Have you written in a more formal way? Remember, a literary essay is a formal piece of writing. Do you at least have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion? And remember, each new point should be a new paragraph. Do a quick spelling check. Have you used correct punctuation? Have you stuck to your word count? Please try not to be too casual in the way that you write your literary essay. Again, we would use a rubric to mark the essay, either for the novel or for the drama. Again, if you end up writing a creative essay, we cannot give you any marks for it. You must write an essay that keeps coming back to the topic we've given you about the drama or the novel, and you keep giving us evidence from those texts for it. So what does an actual exam look like? I thought I'd give you a past paper. Remember that some of the poetry here might not be on your current prescribed list, in which case just use it as practice for your unseen poetry section. I'm not going to go into detail and give you answers to every question, but I'm going to point out certain significant things in your question paper. All right. So remember, if you're going to do the essay on your poem, you must do the essay and one other contextual plus the unseen poem. If you do two contextuals, you must do the unseen poem as well. Either way, you must have three answers, three sections answered here. To receive your distinction in this essay, you must focus on tone, dictionary, and imagery and link it to the topic that we've given you. All right, keep that in mind. Right, in some of I'm just looking at certain question types here. So if you look at question 2.1 there, it says outline the argument. So outline means to explain the argument throughout the poem. Question 4 there says, in your opinion, but then it also tells you to justify your answer. So this question may ask for your opinion, but your response must actually be based on what you've read in the poem and what you've studied in it. So take evidence from a poem to support your belief about where he proved his point here. Question 3.1 here says, identify the points of comparison. So you need to literally go find those similarities or differences throughout the stanzas in this poem and say why they are being compared. Question 4 there says, evaluate how effective the structure of the poem is. Evaluate means to explain if it works. Right, you want to explain that it was effective. If you look at your next question, in question 4 here, question 1 there says, describe the form and structure of the poem. So this is an easy question, guys. You literally need to describe the way it's been set out. How many lines does it have? Is it a particular type of poem? Has it got 14 lines, or is it a sonnet? Those technical questions can come up there. Question 4.2 says, discuss what the use of poetic apostrophe contributes to. So remember, a poetic apostrophe is when a character or speaker addresses someone who is not present, who's absent. You speak to them as though they're there. And then the last question 3 there says, to what extent may Wordsworth's point be relevant to us in South Africa today? Support your response with reference to the poem. This is a great question, but remember to give your thoughts, but find evidence from the poem to support it. Question 5 is your compulsory question. That is your unseen poem. All right, so you must answer question 5. 5.1 asks you to outline the contrast given in these lines. So outline means to describe what is being contrasted. Give the similarities and give the differences. Question 3 there says, refer to certain lines and interpret the effects of this imagery. So you must explain how this imagery helps us to imagine what the poet was trying to get across to us. Then we get to your novel. In the question for the essay, remember to look at your word counts, all right, and then take your topic and rephrase it as your opening statement. So here your instruction specifically tells you to reference certain characters he meets along the way in his journey. All right, so you must mention those characters. If we look at the contextual questions there, question 1 says, recount how Harold came to know Queenie. So you must describe how he met him. Question 4 there says, discuss what this realization of Harold's contributes to the theme of forgiveness. So you need to mention what realization happened here and link it to the theme of forgiveness. Question 6 there says, Harold has many troubling memories, right? And that he remembers and the pain it caused him. So you must outline it. You must describe to us the pain that he's going through. Question 9 says to comment critically. Remember, comment critically means make your statements, discuss it further, and find evidence from either the extract or from what you know in the plot to support what you have to say there. In the drama section, your essay question here, remember again, look at your word counts, okay? Even if this question appears to ask you for your opinion, you don't actually give only your opinion. You comment on the facts as you have read them in the novel. Keep in mind, this question does not need you to say what religion is better. It does ask you to give examples of how the two religions are contrasted throughout the play and how they are actually similar and how they're not always seen in a positive light. This is what you actually need to discuss. There is no need for you to only give your opinion. You simply state the facts from the plot as if they are facts. Okay. Good. Your contextual then for your drama, again, just looking at certain questions. Question 9.1, this is outline the behavior. So describe the behaviors that Shylock is referring to here. Question 4 says comment critically. So make your statement, discuss this further, and find evidence either from the extract or what you can recall from the play that links us to the wisdom of Antonio's response here. Question 6 there says, describe how the conflict between appearance and reality manifests here. So when something manifests, it becomes obvious to us. All right, so question 7 there says to explain the effects of the ironic paradox. So remind yourself what a paradox is. It's two opposite images contained in a description for us. Okay, evaluate the dramatic effect of Portia's aside. So you need to know what an aside is. So when they speak quietly to themselves on stage, out loud, otherwise the audience can't hear what they're thinking. And you must evaluate it. You must say whether it is effective, all right, at informing us as the audience. So, grade 11, I hope that I've managed to answer any questions you might have had. I think if you remember to go through your study guides comprehensively, that you are more than adequately prepared for this exam. And I look forward to seeing some of your answers. Good luck. You've got this.